Please welcome Marc Steinberg.
Thank you, Sir. Thank you. And good evening. Thank you for being here. For me, it's a privilege to have your time and my time spent on a journey into the fascinating aspects of human development, all in the context tonight of consciousness. Consciousness is the new currency, the Sunday Times recently wrote. My passion is to provide a space for people to experience life again with the freshness what we had when we were still young. The mind makes things naturally quite old. We deal with the mind a little bit later, we come to that. But there is an innocence and a freshness available, regardless of age, regardless of social status, regardless your past, whatever you have experienced. That is that when suddenly we experience life as something beautiful, an opening, an opportunity. Not a burden, not something to struggle with, not something to get over with. And to bring back that state is one of my passions. The other one is to teach people the art of coaching. Not so much so that they can make it a career, and they can, but rather because I know with coaching you actually have a most powerful tool to make all the relationships in your life work. From the most significant other to the relationship at work, if you're a parent, to your children, etc., etc. I'm going to touch on coaching a little bit later in the evening as well. In order to get the best out of an evening like that, let me spend a few minutes on making some remarks on the setting. By the nature of a presentation, I'm the one who speaks the most tonight, and easily that can be then trigger a setting like a lecture. Well, a lecture isn't bad. However, what I prefer is a nature of an inquiry. An inquiry is that we are somehow on the same level in a partnership. Of course, I present themes and I ask questions. But from your perspective, from your position, I'm not the master or the authority that incapacitates you, and best of all, you could leave with beliefs or faith or whatever it is. I think it's second best, if at all. If you are just coming from like a scientist, like a friend, a question, and then you look what you see. And that's important. Why? Because what you see can get an insight for you. Now, an insight is very different from understanding. Understanding you can do in the mind. An insight is something you see. And when you understand something, then very likely it's second-hand knowledge what you agree to. Second-hand my knowledge or knowledge you know and you agree to. But make no mistake, your ego sooner or later will reject that. It's like a splinter of wood you have in your finger. The body rejects it. That's why the best ideas you hear, sooner or later you can't live them because your ego takes over, because you haven't seen it with your own eyes, you only saw it through the eyes of the teacher. And so it requires from you simply the choice never to fall asleep, never to believe what I'm saying, but rather to inquire, to take a look with your own eyes and to see whether that's so. The condition for you not getting stuck in your own knowledge and just being in an argument with what you hear tonight would be only an empty hand can receive. That is the old Zen wisdom. Now that would require from your side to be open that some things you don't know. I know it's a difficult one for the ego sometimes. On the other hand, it's a strength of the student to be open to learn something new, and it might be in contrast to what you know, but then again, be a researcher. Park what you know, don't drop it, just park it, and explore the new idea, explore the new things that might be presented to you. And then see what makes more sense. See how, with the new ideas, live your life a couple of days and see how it works. If it works better, cool, then make your choice. If it doesn't work, go back to what you had before, also not a problem. Receptivity is what I'm talking about. It's key for getting the best value out of tonight. And where I'm speaking from is to create tonight such that when you leave, you really have seen some new things. That would be the most beautiful result what I could wish for. When we talk about consciousness and human development, there's always very close the theme of the truth. The truth. Yeah? And I want to just share my perception on the truth, that we're not going to have a misunderstanding here. I don't believe that the truth can be owned by any individual or organization. I believe the truth was always there, is here, will always be there. It's always complete, and it always was like that. So, I compare it with an analogy of, for example, the 8 letters you see on the screen. Let's say, just an analogy, that this represents the truth. So when you find the truth, you will find 8 letters. But you can't use them. So what did people do who found the truth? They tried to make sense of it. They tried to arrange it so it becomes practical and workable for human beings. So how can you arrange the 8 letters? Well, you can start arranging it, for example, in this way. So you did not take away anything from the truth, you did not manipulate it, you did not add something of your own stuff. It's still pure, 8 letters, but arranged. Now that word reaction, for example, has a particular vibration, it has a particular possibility inherited, etc., 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 but you might not be happy with it. So can you look for a different arrangement? Of course you can. If you're not stuck on fanaticism with regard to reaction, that particular arrangement of truth, then look out for what else can you do with it, all right? Then, for example, you take the C, you put it in front, and you got creation. So remember, it's still the truth, it's pure. It's still 8 letters, nothing taken away, nothing added. A different word, a different vibration, a different possibility. And that's my perspective on the truth, that religion, spiritual systems, etc., whatever they found, they made a particular arrangement. And it is now for the arrangement to prove its validity, as in, does it actually change relationships, how people relate to themselves, how happy they are they thinking more holistically, etc., 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 whatever your parameters are. So that's for me how truth is, how I experience it and where we come from. What we present to you tonight is a lot of science, but I'm not going to go into the full depth of it because you can Google it if you're particularly interested in what we talk about the brain, etc., etc. However, the findings of the material what I present tonight is based on science, on neurology, brain science, ontology, the science of being, psychology, etc., etc. You may ask, well, it's all interesting, and that consciousness thing, I'm happy to listen to it for an hour, hour and a half. But actually, what's the relevance of consciousness to the daily life? The relevance to your relationship at home and the challenges in there. the relevance of your career dreams or the relevance to the health in your body, the relevance to the bank account, and so on and so forth. And I say, well, it's not a difficult thing to look at. Just start with your life. What you have right now is a consequence of what? So what you have, I mean all the people who are in your life, the people who are not in your life, the possessions in the material world you have, your money, your property, your clothes, your furniture, everything, the security you have, and so on and so forth. So everything what is the reality of your life. How did that come to this point? Well, obviously through your actions, right? Your actions are creating the results. I know it's very banal for some of you, but just bear with me, I'm going to get someplace with it. So your actions create the results. Before the actions, what comes? What would you say? Before the actions comes what? What determines the actions? Thoughts. But okay, let's take that. If it's a thought, can you have a thought and not act on it?
Yes.
Sure, right? So what's between a thought and action? Choice. But can you choose something and still not do it?
Commitment.
Commitment. Okay, so prior the commitment and the decision happens what? We just heard thoughts, but that's not the only thing that's there. What else is there?
Plan.
Say again?
Plan.
A plan would be structured thought. It still would be thinking. Come on, ladies.
Feeling.
Thank you. Feeling. Yeah? So what we're saying is that feeling and thinking is there. From there, you process and then you may make a decision. If you make a decision and you follow up on that, that leads to action. The action then is successful, yes or not, or in some way, and that leads to a particular result. That's what you got. That thinking and feeling in the full scope we are addressing. That means from subtle thoughts to strong intellectual, logical thoughts when you need to make a decision about signing an insurance contract or something like that. And from the feeling side also, the full scope. That means from a strong desire, I have to have that car or I have to have that person. I can't live without them. Strong desire or a subtle feeling of intuition. I don't know, but maybe tonight I should not go there. And I can't explain it. I just have a gut feeling. So the whole range and the combination of thoughts and feelings is going on. And that leads then in the consequence of decision-making action to the results you have. So what I'm saying is that the life you have today, as it is a or started out always as a thinking, feeling process. Yeah? So if you want to have a different future, then you would need to have a different thinking and feeling, right? Because otherwise, you are one of those who fit the description of insanity, according to Rita Mae Brown. She says insanity is doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. You probably have heard that quote before. But many of us, when we really take a look at our lives and are not in defense and all the rest of it, we say, hey, here. Yeah? Then that consciousness is the dimension, the domain, the context, as I will explain to you in a moment, in which thinking and feeling happens. You are aware of it, so there's a particular space there thinking and feeling happens, and that leads then to your life. So I believe that is important for everybody to see the real relevance, that it's not about being told what to do, but rather to change or to transform or to educate or to uplift, whatever name you want to give it, your thinking and feeling. If that changes, then in the manifestation process, your life results will change. So that's why we say human evolution because we are not the only ones here. We talk about the human being, where we all are representative of a species that almost hits now the 7 billion rate. And when I was studying what are the core desires of a human being, then it's very simple, and I think you will find the same thing. What is every human being's core desires? Well, it all boils down, whatever human being does, whether you agree with their methods or not, it doesn't matter. It all comes to them trying to be happy in one way or the other. They might do the most stupid things, it doesn't matter. The intention behind it is in one way or the other being happy. Then we got power. Everybody wants to experience that they can do things, they can make a difference, they have some leverage on creating their life. And everybody also wants to see and experience meaning. So that is common to all human beings. No matter where you go on the planet, you will always have those parameters available and present. So let's do a little bit of hard thinking here. Now, do you know that you are the end product of 2.5 million years of human evolution? 2.5 million years. This species, where you and I are at the edge, there is no future, it's only the here and now. So 2.5 million years it took life to get to that point where you and I find ourselves being. As I said, it's all researched to that what is available today as knowledge. And yes, maybe we are completely wrong. However, I believe we can all agree that for a long time, we as a species have been on the planet. Whether it's 1 million years or 2.5 or even 50,000 years, I wouldn't care. I'm just asking the question, technologically we have evolved a great deal. What happened psychologically? I mean, is there less fear, more love, more happiness, more fulfillment, less greed, less envy than 2,000 years ago? Our toys are different, sure. 5,000 years ago? What happened psychologically that we don't seem to really have made a lot of progress? Not to speak of when we go through the whole 2.5 million years or 50,000 years. Isn't that an interesting question? Why are we not born being happy, having power, meaning? Maybe we are born like that, but then the bloody conditioning is kicking in, you know, and is taking most of that beautiful stuff what we have as a baby away from us. Then as adults we are in the condition of not really experiencing those 3 core desires. That leaves us vulnerable to the industry, who is too busy and happy to sell us anything what they come up with, because the promise is always, buy this and you're going to be more happy. Do this and it makes you more happy. So, I say there must be something in there, and I'm going to take a look at that tonight, that maybe we discover what is the missing part, why we as a human species have not really made sufficient progress when you take a look that we had 2.5 million years time, and then we end up like that. Not that everything's wrong, but hey, there are things you and I know that are not really working. And 2.5 million years doesn't make quite sense, you know, that we're not further down the line. See, for example, the questions, why don't we know what we really want? Why don't we get what we want? Why is life a struggle? Why don't we know our true north? These are all questions human beings are asking and having. So, maybe the teachers were missing. Maybe we didn't have the answers. Let's take a look at that. When you say, okay, Mark, if you take a look at that, it's just about knowing how to be happy and meaning and powerful. If I only would know that, then the problem would be solved. Well, is the knowledge available today? Definitely it is. There are so many philosophers today. Eckhart Tolle, Kim Weiber, etc., etc. They are all offering great philosophies, great tools for us human beings to be happy and meaningful and powerful. Was it available 100 years ago? Of course, philosophers like Kierkegaard and Heidegger, Kant, etc., etc., they said the same thing in their particular language. Was it available 2,000 years ago? Yes. Socrates, Plato, Heraclitus, all the great philosophers, and so on and so forth. So the answers of how to become a real human being were around all the time. So why are those answers not profoundly sinking in, becoming organic, change my behavior, my being, and I'm a changed person? Why are they in me as on the surface I know, but I don't act on it? See, asking that question might lead you to the insight that you ask yourself the question, maybe it's not because the right answer hasn't been found. Maybe it's in the nature of an answer that an answer doesn't make a difference. It doesn't give you power. Maybe it's there, because if that would be so, if you would see that any answer in itself is not giving you power, not because it's a wrong answer, just because it's an answer, then what would happen? You wouldn't look for the next answer, right? You would not go that direction, because you see it. The next answer, if it still will be an answer, and therefore, whatever you will expect, it will not happen. And that would leave you then very powerfully with another question. But before we go there, just want to bring to your awareness that we do have answers. For example, we shouldn't eat particular things, but we do. We should exercise, but we don't. We should not argue, but we do. We should get our work ready by tomorrow, and we don't. We should speak the truth, and we don't. We should pay off our credit cards, and we don't, etc. So everybody knows things but is not acting on it. Can you agree to that? So there seems to be the critical thing that we are looking out for. What is missing? Because now I'm left with, I stopped moving into that direction. Now I need to look out from having stopped going for the next answer, the next book, the next philosophy, the next master, the next, whatever it is. I must now ask the question, okay, I'm clueless with where to go now. So what am I going to do? And for this, you need to take a look at, first of all, what are you made of? How are you composed? What is it and how does a human being tick? Because you and I weren't born with a manual. So let's take a look, and not through complex systems, but you just and I thinking and looking at who are we, what are we made of? Well, the first thing what you find is that you have a body, right? A human being has a body, you got a body. You are not the body, but you have a body. Part of the body is a brain. So you got a three-part brain, which is made up of the R system, the limbic system, and the neocortex. So that brain operates the body. Question is now, with what do you operate the brain? Any ideas? With what do you operate the brain? The brain is the hardware, right? You got 100 billion brain and nerve cells, 3 systems, 3 brain parts. And what is operating hardware? Software, right? So the mind, for example, is one operating system that is impacting on the brain. It's not the only one, but it's one. The other one is the subconscious. So we got the mind and the subconscious, and I'll explain to you in a moment how they work, because it's very interesting and very valuable to know that. So this is the part what I want to share specifically with you tonight is the three human operating systems: the mind, the subconscious, and consciousness. Because once you understand that, you will see with your own eyes why there can't be any possible psychological development and evolution if the foundations are not set for that. And that was the missing part, I believe. That's why the answers were around, but have not touched us and changed us on the core or organically in the cells. Consciousness is a word, I'm not sure how familiar you are with it, but it is more and more and more part of global awareness, what I'm very happy about. Oprah is talking about consciousness plenty. Debbie Ford, the 21-day consciousness cleanse. And Debbie Ford, she even speaks that it is a human operating system, which is quite interesting. Even Jacques Chirac, whether you like him or not is a different question. In his speech in 2007, he says, it is time for a revolution in consciousness. And Sunday Times, as I already said, recently called it the new currency. I would say commodity would be a better word for it, because commodity is a natural resource. I believe consciousness is. And it's raw. It needs to be refined. So the word consciousness, when we talk to companies and corporations where we also offer our products, it's really fascinating to see that almost everyone now is working with the word, has some understanding of it. It's not something esoteric, spooky, weird any longer as it was still 10 years ago, or especially 20 years ago. Okay, let's talk about the mind. The mind is that what you experience as the chatter between your ears. The mind is also often referred to as the monkey, because it consistently is talking to you. The mind is assessed to have a processing power of 2000 bits per second. That is not much at all. It's not very powerful. It's a very tiny, slow processor. And if you remember the first driver's lessons when you were sitting in the car and you had suddenly to deal with a dozen or half a dozen new things: indicators, steering, shifting gears, braking, clutch. For the mind, it's very difficult to get 3 new things handled. It instantly goes into overwhelm, wants to run away, and you really have to engage the mind to get that task done. With the mind, you are usually setting goals, making decisions, and then evaluating the progress. You judge, for example, I'm doing well, I'm not doing well. That's all part, activities of the mind. The mind is forever persistent in continuously being active and not a very powerful system. The powerful system, what we have, is the subconscious. The subconscious is a fascinating operating system. First of all, it has about 40 million bits per second processing power. And it actually needs that. Why? Because when you see what the subconscious is, it is a recording and playback device. It records everything what happens any given moment in your life. Whether you put attention on it or not, it records every sound, your 5 senses are experiencing, every taste, and every thought and every emotion you have. So, in other words, and that's a scientific fact, in your memory, what is stored is, for example, when you had your 5th birthday, how the cake smelled, what mom was saying, who were your friends there, what music was playing, what were you feeling, experiencing, did you cut your finger, yes or not, it's all there. Every moment of your life is recorded. And it does it for a particular purpose, because when the recording gets repeated, so it records the same thing over and over again, the subconscious makes it a program. That program is now like a batch file on the computer. It executes particular commands for a particular purpose. For example, I was a toddler, and I looked at the adults and I saw that they are, of course not consciously, I saw that they are walking on two legs. So I tried to imitate it. And got up, fell down, got up, fell down, got up, fell down. And at some stage, I managed to stand on two. So this walking became, in the act of repeating it time and time again, a program. In order now for me to get out of my chair, I wouldn't be able to do that with my mind. My mind has no idea how to command my muscles in order to get the spacesuit out of the chair. So, but my mind is making the decision. Then the subconscious is uploading the program walking into my brain, because the brain is coordinating the muscles in the body and everything else what is needed. So upload program, walking, and here we go, I'm getting out of my chair, and now I can walk. Same with language. In order to, for example, change my language, the program German would need to be uploaded into my brain, und dann spreche ich in Deutsch weiter, und dann kann ich auch wieder zurückgehen into English. So everything what you are able to do automatically is a program, which is great because, for example, the program driving a car gets you home most of the time safely, while you are focusing completely on the conversation with your passenger. And you don't even remember the last time you actually consciously broke at a red light. But it just happens because your subconscious is running the driving program. So, the subconscious does not think. It records and playbacks. It doesn't have an inherent intelligence. In other words, the consequence is that it does not decide whether to record or not according to good or bad. It records simply everything, like every video camera is recording that what you pointed to. Whether it's a crime or bad or not bad is not of the video camera's concern. So when your dad told you that you are stupid, and he repeated that over and over again, guess what the subconscious did? Created a program, I'm stupid. Then your life is an unfoldment to prove to everyone that you're not stupid. If anybody tries now to point the finger to you and puts you into the corner where the chances that you could be perceived as stupid, you go hectically into reaction, you defend yourself, and you probably are one of those who study all night long in order to do one exam after the next exam, after the next exam, in order to prove to yourself and to the world that you are not stupid. That's probably what your life is going to be about. Or you were told that you're bad. Then your life is about to prove that you're not bad, that you're good. Then you become a pleaser. You know, then you always avoid any kind of conflict because that would get you back into the program, I'm bad. There are many programs. I'm not worthy. It's a program many people have. I don't deserve it. I'm not lovable. I'm bad. Or if you were sick as a child many times, then you have the program, I'm ill. And then that program is subject to be triggered and play in your mind. Now, the trigger of any of those programs could be anything that is part of what was recorded. So when your dad, for example, said that, let's go back to that example, then the visual of the dad, the tone of the voice of the dad, everything is recorded. And everything that is recorded could, when you experience it in the here and now, be a potential trigger to get that program uploaded. Let's say when I was 3 years old, I had an aunt with red hair who treated me oftentimes very harshly. So she intimidated me. So I developed a program feeling small. But part of the recording is aunt with red hair. Any person in the here and now that my five senses are experiencing, you for example, yeah, could be a potential trigger to get the program uploaded. So suddenly I feel in the presence of Anna small, intimidated. But I can't explain it because I don't know her. Then my mind needs an explanation. It always needs something to understand. So my mind makes up a story that she probably has a different agenda in some business. She wants to sell me something or she wants to do something with me. I don't know what it is, but I'd rather stay away from her. That will now shape my behavior and my actions. If we happen to talk in the break or somewhere in a social event, then I would be suspicious by everything she says because I'm coming from that she is out there to get me. The last person knowing that it's a program is who?
Yourself.
Me. That's the bitch about the programs. That's why it's called unconscious because, or subconscious, doesn't matter. You're not conscious of it. You believe it's her. And those programs run the show, not the ego. The ego just doesn't admit it because the ego thinks it runs the show. Ego thinks, it is in charge of your life. But what actually happens is that those programs determine your experience, and from your experience you usually act. And that's why Carl Gustav Jung quite rightly said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate because you don't see it, that what's causing the upset at the moment is a program and not because somebody said something to you. Especially in relationship, especially with a significant other. Programs. So all the psychologists who are telling you actually married your mom or you are married actually to your dad, they are quite right. Because what's happening is that the significant other is just triggering dozens of programs that had to do with the people and the persons in your life when you were very early. Like the deep cut is the deepest. So then a relationship is all around programs fighting for domination and win with each other. So now you can do courses in order to change those programs. It's not a bad idea. However, there are so many programs that needs to be actually gotten out of the way so that you are a free human being, free from programs and therefore being able to design your own destiny, to walk your own path, not a path of reactions to your programs that maybe a couple of lifetimes would not last in order to get it all done. So let's inquire further. Just a side note, and then we come back to the stream where we go to the third operating system. The human brain is a three-part brain, 100 billion nerve and brain cells. And it's interesting that this brain, what you're sitting in your chair with, is not working holistically. Everything what you do and what you are doing in an hour is a matter of the brain accessing the particular parts of itself that are needed in order to do the job. But there's not a central intelligence. There's no captain. So today everybody believes we are actually in here. Maybe 200 years from now, it is regarded as a superstition of the 21st century that there was actually somebody there because everybody is laughing in 200 years. How could they possibly believe that? Yeah, no wonder they had such a problem because if everybody thinks you are there, then of course we fight with each other and all the rest of it because everybody is not coming from the whole, everybody is coming from a separate individual ego. But we're not there yet as a total insight, but as I told you, I'm going to share some ideas with you that might inspire you to dig deeper. Okay, so we have that as a brain where there's actually nobody in there, and we need now to take a look at what do we have that is the part what we need to have in order to step into the completion of us as a human being? And by that I mean, we talked about the third operating system, consciousness. Somebody mentioned it. Mind, subconscious. Number 3, consciousness. Do we have it? Yes. However, I say we only have it in a passive condition. It's not active. The operating system is passively doing one job. It gives you the power to be aware. Awareness is something that doesn't come from the mind, because you are aware of the mind, so the mind can't produce awareness. Awareness is coming from the third operating system, from consciousness. You don't have to do anything for it, it just is. If you regard that as the evidence for the existence of something outside of the mind and the subconscious, let's work with the word consciousness, then the question is, what would it mean and how would it need to be done to activate consciousness? And how would that look like? And I say that many of you, if not all, have experienced moments of an activated consciousness, because then suddenly you get the experience of life is working, because what you attract suddenly is in flow with what you do. You are not working against life any longer, trying to make your way. No, it's just flowing. Do you remember those hours or days, where you wake up in the morning, you got the light energy about you, you're crystal clear, you get a parking spot just by thinking of it, you get a promotion from your boss, you get a tax return, your strangers are smiling at you, and your energy never stops, and it just is wonderful to be alive. I know that everybody must have had those moments. So have you ever asked yourself the question, why we don't have that as the most natural state, and only sometimes we don't have it? But for most people it's the other way around. Only sometimes they do have that flow. And the rest is the other condition. And I say it has to do with consciousness as an operating system not being active. Now you can ask now the question, so why isn't it active? Well, it's also not a difficult question. In order to have something active, it needs to be stimulated to jump on. Like the brain needs to have stimuli appropriate to get active. If you don't give any stimuli to a baby, nothing is going to happen. The baby is going to die probably. But we do give the stimuli, we do give the environment that the R system, the limbic system, and the little part of the neocortex can develop. So in order for the operating systems and the brain to work, we need to provide for our children the necessary environment that gets that active. And I say you and I have been born into a culture where that is not part of our upbringing. Neither our parents have been aware that they could provide it for us, nor is it part of the curriculum at schools. It's just not there. It wasn't provided for you and me. So it's like you got a leg, but you're not trained it. So you can't use it because it shrinks. It's still potentially there, but it's not usable because it never got attended to. It never got stimulated. So if we are now taking that on, let's speculate about the possibility consciousness would have, because as an adult you can make a conscious choice. You can make the choice to now go for doing that what the system in our upbringing has not been able to provide to us. And then you will see what is going to happen to you and what the impact on your life is. So the consciousness is able to engage the brain holistically. That is the third operating system that is able to do that. I want to now illustrate to you the possibility and the power of consciousness. I compare it with a cross-section in the ocean. Just imagine that this is the ocean, and on the surface you got the little waves, the mind. That is the chatter, that is I want, I don't want, we should not, blah, 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 blah. It goes on, and in the night it doesn't stop. It's called dreaming. There are the little waves. Thoughts are very quick and fast and fast and fast in the chatter of the mind. Down here, in the middle section of the ocean, the water is not moving like that. No, it's moving, but it's much broader and wider. So the amplitudes of the middle section of the water of an ocean are longer. And therefore, we call them the moods. Moods are triggered by subconscious programs that are playing you. A mood can be for a minute, for an hour, for a day, or even for many days. And down here, the ground could be compared with the ground of being and with consciousness, which is quite good because the ground doesn't move at all. It is still, it just is. And awareness just is, it doesn't move. Attention moves, but awareness doesn't, it just is. So when you now put that into practical terms, let's say your mind says, let's get financially in a healthier condition. Then your mind says, what do we need for that? And you say, okay, 100,000 euros on my savings by the end of the year. The mind can do that. And then you make a decision and say, let's do that. You must make a plan now. And let's say part of the plan is that you need to get 2 hours, you need to get up 2 hours earlier every morning in order to particular actions that get you the more money in. So you set your alarm clock instead of 7, now you have to get up at 5. The alarm clock rings at 5 o'clock. You get up and you don't know what you're doing there 2 hours before the normal time. So your mind remembers you, listen, we have a plan, making money. That keyword money is a potential trigger for your subconscious programs around money. Let's say your program, the first cut is the deepest, so the earliest one, because your uncle always told you money is the root of all evil. Let's say that's your program. Remember, it's unconscious, you have no idea that it's there. So, 5 o'clock, let's make money, program gets uploaded, money is the root of all evil. Guess how motivated you are getting up now? Now you need to exercise willpower, right? Now you go into that last resort of the ego and the mind, willpower. So you force yourself to get up. But how long do you think you can sustain that? A week or two, you're very good. Sooner or later, you give up. The moment you give up, what takes over again? The subconscious. Or you don't start at all. You said, oh, that was a stupid idea. Or you do it, you force yourself, and then you feel guilty because you are now one of the people you can point the finger to, because you are now one of the people who are the root of all evil. So you make the money, you're guilty, and make sure that you're going to lose it sooner or later in order to be back to your original values, which were never yours, but you're not conscious of it. You get the picture? If it would be possible to move the middle section of the ocean 100 meters into that direction. So the whole water, 2 kilometers down, between 2 and 4, 100 meters into that direction. If you move the water on the middle ground, of course, they have no vote. They can't say, no, we're going to stay. Yeah? So the subconscious programs always determine the mind, always run the mind. Except willpower, and that is very limited. Yeah, the willpower is the resistance of your programs, nothing more. If you wouldn't have your programs, then you wouldn't need willpower, because then you would be in a natural flow. Okay, so subconscious over the mind. Now, when you would go down here at the ground of being, at the ground of the ocean, and you would move that water, the ground in 100 meters into that direction, then naturally the subconscious, the middle section of the water would need to go with it, so of course would be the mind. So consciousness is always more powerful than the subconscious, and the subconscious over the mind. So with consciousness active, you are in command of what's gonna happen. If that thing isn't active, then the only thing what wants to show is the subconscious and the mind resisting it. So when consciousness is active, life feels and is like a magical ride, flow. Things we want and need come to us, law of attraction. Things we don't need disappear. It's beautiful. You made an appointment to meet a person, suddenly for whatever reason you don't want to keep that appointment anymore. You don't even need to call the person is calling you and saying, I'm sorry, I can't come. Happens all the time. Little things like that. Parking spots never going to be a problem again. If you need to make an appointment on time, there's suddenly no traffic jam, where usually always a traffic jam is. So your reality is starting to suddenly dance in alignment with what you are having as an intention of action. It's a beautiful system. So what would become available to us is the power to deliberately attract. I don't know whether you read the book The Secret or saw the movie. Yeah, some of you? Okay. All right. So the 5 minutes in the morning visualization is quite nice and wonderful. But if you sit there 5 minutes in the morning, every single morning, and have your red Ferrari in mind, I promise you the thing will not show up. Not as yours. Why? Because you are doing it from the mind. You're making waves up there and expect the ground of being to change. It's ridiculous. Even if you fiddle around with the subconscious programs, and if you manage to get them a little bit out of the way, it still isn't going there where manifestation happens, and manifestation only happens in the here and now in the ground of being. So if you would have that active, and you do your deliberate attraction exercises in the context of consciousness, then we are talking about a whole different execution of power. Then suddenly the magic kicks in. But I don't remember having read that in the book. The power to see clearly. Seeing is a beautiful art, and we don't have time to go into that tonight. But it's very different from thinking. See, when you see something clearly, you don't need to make a decision. It's clear. You see it. What we see, not through the mind that would be thinking, but what is clear is clear. There is no choice. Yeah? Clarity has no choice. And the power to create. Now, the power to create is something very special, something very beautiful. I want to go into that. But before we look at creation, we need to look at change, because the two are often confused. Change is that what the mind, the first operating system, is anticipating and using in order to get you what you want. If you have any problem in any area of your life, the mind's reaction to the problem is what needs to change. Then it comes up with a projection of a possible solution, then your actions are aligned with that projection to that solution, and then you may have changed something, but you wonder why it didn't make any difference. Ever experienced that you changed things, but it didn't make any difference? Like you change your partners, but you still have the same relationship problems? You change your doctor, but you still have the same health problems? You change your boss, but you still have the same financial problems? Or you change your lifestyle and you still have the problem of happiness? Because now you are having your Bentley and your 500 square villa, and now you're only suffering in more luxurious circumstances. So many things that we change, we see that it doesn't make any difference. So change is a limited instrument. And if you don't have anything else available, you're going to be hunting hallucinations. And if you reach the hallucination, you're going to stand there as empty as you were 1 kilometer before, because it didn't turn out the way you thought it would. So obviously we're pointing to something that needs to come to the party as an alternative. So change is something from something. It's always looking at the problem and then taking the problem, the energy, the material, whatever it is, and make it into something new. That new, however, is made of the old. It's just a new shape, a new form. That's why it doesn't make a difference. See, creation is something from nothing. Literally nothing. it's bringing forth something that has no link to any cause, to no past, to no before. It's bringing forth from nothing. From a practical point of view, let's say you're leader in your company, and suddenly you discover, after you had 1 year of problems, the problem is, we found it now, darkness. Darkness is our problem. So, you're a man of action, woman of action, then you call a task force. You Google darkness, you start studying darkness, you go on blogs where people talk about darkness, so you educate yourself around, you go into it, you ask specialists, you make experiments. And while you're doing all that great stuff, which only if you succeed would lead to change, a person of consciousness would never go that route. Because a person of consciousness, knowing of the power of creation, would only ask one question. Not what's the problem and how do we change darkness, but what would we need to create? That's the only question. What would we need to create? And if you get that, then you would have, there shall be light. Very simple. But that is bringing forth something from nothing. You're not going to deal and focus on the problem. You are asking the question, what is it we would need to create? Same principle in a relationship. You either can deal or focus on the problem and try to change your partner, try to change yourself, try to change each other, or you ask the question, what is it we would need to create such that we would have, fill in the blank, whatever it is you want to have. But most people are then, okay, create, how does it work? Well, the first thing we teach people is to have the insight that in order to create, you need to have consciousness active, because that is the operating system that is able to create, because the subconscious only can upload programs, the mind only can think and come up with blueprints, but the power to create is somewhere else. The power to create a parking spot. The mind thinks the power to create the parking spot is created in your consciousness. And sometimes when there was a crisis for you, where there was no mind, no time for the mind, the crisis was immediate, you had to act. Now, no procrastination. Yeah? I say you were incredibly powerful in that moment. You did things you can't do, you can't repeat under normal circumstances. You were effective. Incredible. And that only shows you that when the brain is forced to work holistically, what's possible for us human beings. So our actions rise either from the reactions, programs, etc., from the past, or from creations. That means the question, what is it we need to create? And that would be then the future. The nature of consciousness. It's only a little theme, but I want to share it with you so that you have heard the perspective where we come from when we look at consciousness. It's interesting that there is no plural in any language I'm aware of that has, or there's no plural for the word consciousness. There is no consciousnesses in the dictionaries. It's one consciousness. If we take that and see consciousness as, for example, something like the internet. So it doesn't belong to you, it doesn't belong to me. But we can log into, we can connect. Once we connect it, we can access the powers available of that context. The mind is yours, the subconscious is yours. Of course, nobody has a history you have. Maybe consciousness is not mine, yours, it's ours. Therefore, it can't be manipulated. Therefore, the wisdom is always pure and coming from the whole. The ego can't go there. You only can connect. And once you connect it, then you receive that wonderful holistic intelligence. And by the way, intelligence comes from the root meaning in Latin, intelligere, that means between the lines. Not, it's between the lines. Lines means thinking, material. It's between there. It all fits wonderfully together if you start studying the subject. So the nature of consciousness is not content, but it's a context. A context is like a reference frame. It's a milieu, an environment, a domain, a realm. And I want to share with you how powerful context is when it comes to comparison to content. See, take the example of blood. People, when face blood, some people, they get a little bit nauseous, woozy. Others, they literally faint. They look at blood and boom, here they go. Even others secretly want to lick it. There are different relationships to the blood and their experience about what they want to do with it. Context means it's a relationship to the blood that determines how you feel and what you want to do with it, not the blood. It's what your relationship to the blood is that determines your experience. People always think it's the blood. It's not true. It's a relationship to the blood. If somebody calls you stupid, it's a relationship you have to being called stupid, not somebody having you called stupid. Because if you would be 50 years ago a follower of Gurdjieff, he classified all human being development stages into stages of idiotism. So you would be one of the idiots in the 36 levels of idiots, according to Gurdjieff. So if somebody tells you an idiot, you would say, yeah, right, it's normal, I'm a human being, yeah, I'm an idiot, so continue what you want to say. But you would not go, how dare you? And would start fighting or go into defense. All your reactions, I say, are never a product of what out there has happened or is happening, but your relationship to that. Whatever you get upset about what your husband or your wife does, it's not because they did. It's your relationship to them having done. The relationship determines your experience to any reality, and the relationship is always a context. So here's a light bulb moment, a suggestion. The relationship you have to something creates your experience, not to something. If that really would kick in, the next emotion you have, the next experience you have, especially the negative ones, you would not start now fighting with your husband, fighting with your boss, pointing at the government, and do all these things. You would examine, if you don't like the experience, you would examine what's my relationship to what's happening there, because the relationship, what I have to that is determining the experience, not that it's happening. Wise man many years ago told me, Mark, it's never what you did, it's always where you did it. Because the same thing if you do 3,000, 6,000 kilometers east or west, over there there's a different context. It might be an entirely different story. Same action, there you're hero, here you're zero. So it's never those obvious things as we conditioned, like light in front of you, yes, because you said, I'm upset. So I blame you for the experience I have. Under various reasons, A, it's not true, because it's your relationship that creates your experience, and B, it disempowers you, because you are pointing to a source outside that is more powerful than yourself. So, as consciousness is a context, it entirely is the operating system that is determining the relationship you have to anything in the world. If you are determining what your relationship is in context, in consciousness, you got the context from which to relate to the world, while your mind and your subconscious are still doing their old thing. So it's a whole new possibility for you to become authentic. Authentic means you are the author of the relationship you want to have to the world. So you don't need to change your mind. You don't need to change your ego. You don't need to disempower and work on your subconscious programs. To go quickly through it, the powers of consciousness, as we said, just summarize before we conclude. It's the power to transform the experience of reality. As I just said, alcohol does the same thing. You go to a bar, you don't like the people on the bar, you have a couple of beers with them and suddenly you like them. The people didn't change, right? The alcohol changed the context from which you experience the people. So the same power has consciousness, only no side effects. The power to create, I talked about that. The power to manage the law of attraction, we talked about that as well. Then the power to get the brain work holistically, that was touched on. And the power to shift yourself into ownership. That means simply from a position of, for example, appetite having you to you having appetite. Big difference. Nothing wrong with appetite. People are trying, It's always where are you? Either anger has you or you have anger. Now people go to anger management and anger courses and all the rest of it. We say, no, don't do that. Anger is a great energy. It's just a matter of, is the anger having you or are you having the anger? The whole work is based on transferring form, transformation. To get you from a position of victim to a position of victor, where you own the stuff. See, if you own your desire, if you have your desire, then you as consciousness make your decisions coming from wisdom, and inside of that, there are times where you can live your desire, no problem. But if desire has you, then this is always more important than the whole. And then you get in trouble and you get in problems. So, I said just 1 or 2 minutes on coaching, so that the brand consciousness coaching makes sense to you. Consciousness plus coaching, holistic human empowerment. And what we're saying here is that in coaching, it is for me the art to interact with any other human being, anybody, strangers, parents, children, spouse, boss, doesn't matter, in such a way that both of us are left empowered, a little bit more enlightened, uplifted. See, if I engage with you and I make you powerful and I feel then I sacrificed or I'm down, that's not win-win. In coaching, it's a dignifying process for yourself and for the other person. I believe that as human beings, we need to start getting that established. If we can't have powerful relationships to each other, everybody, no exception, how can we possibly create a holistic intelligence that makes us save the planet? As long as we can't do it in the little one, how can we expect it to do in the big one? So coaching for me represents principles that I need to learn because it doesn't come by being born. When I started to study coaching, it was like waking up 100 more times in my life to things that made so much sense, but I haven't seen them before. As parents, we tell our children what to do, what not to do, with our heart, etc., etc. But do they always then learn from it? No. Maybe they learn a little bit here, then puberty comes and they kick it all upside down and show us, who is the real one in charge. Telling people what to do, no matter how right you are, is not really a powerful interaction instrument. Coaching shows you a whole different way to ask questions that make the other person see what you want to tell them. Because then they see it with their own eyes, and this way the ego is not resisting, there's no guard, it's a beautiful energy creation. You are empowered, they are empowered, but problem is you can't talk much anymore when you are a coach. So you need to say goodbye to you being always the most important one who is talking all the time how other people should be and how everybody should be and so on and so forth and so forth. That time will go. You will become a listener. And you will look out for what is the right question here to ask for the maximum empowerment of the other. It's beautiful. And it works. Consciousness without coaching, so without the ability to relate to another in a powerful way. It's like you having only one leg. Coaching without consciousness is also very limited. The two make you run, consciousness and coaching. About 100 years ago, that was a time where survival was the name of the game. First, Second World War, oil, heavy industry, survival, a very dense time back then. What's the name the historians gave that age? Anybody know that? What's the name the historians called that age?
The Industrial Revolution.
Industrial age, exactly. That was the industrial age. Then 50 years later, after the Second World War, we moved into a new age that was called the, what is the latest age where we are at the end of? Industrial age, and then it was a information age. The information age is that what's called. That was a time, invention of computers. With the computers, then we got the internet. With the internet, we got the search engines. And the information age means nothing but at any place in the world where I am, I can access the totality of knowledge humankind has. If you go to Nepal, in the coffee shops in Kathmandu there's a computer and you access the internet there. Yeah, it's still 54 KB, but never mind. Google, you put in the right keyword and you get knowledge. So we can't possibly go any further. Maybe a microchip here and there. That age is done. The new age, and you can see it all over the place, is knocking on the door. It's forcing its way in. Maybe it will be called the consciousness age, or wisdom age, or intelligence age. But it will be that what everybody is pointing to, but nobody is really able to say it in clear words at the moment because we are still in the transition time. It will be consciousness. It will be an age where we suddenly need to educate ourselves in that last bit, what was missing all the time and responsible for us not really having made a psychological evolution. So we stand for the consciousness age and a world that works for everybody. And that world, that starts with you, me, everyone. And that's my wish for each human being, to get that and to start the revolution in consciousness, in themselves, and then from there, share it with anybody they meet. With that, we create a chain reaction of waking up, and if we reach the critical mass, we will have then global awareness on a new level. And that, I think, is what's needed. So thank you for your attention, having been with me, very strong listeners.